All right. Well, looks like we have everybody in attendance. We've got Commissioner Osted and Deutsch online and Chuck Porter online. Then we have Commissioner Don Morgan, Stacey Griggs, and Vicki Dawson in house. So we'll get going with our early July budget meeting. And for Don, this is kind of the first one. We're kind of going through some preliminary. We've sent out our budgets to all of our directors, staff to kind of get that first initial request they feel they need for the year. This year, one thing we've done different is we included all the capital requests, and this includes and maintenance and new projects, just to kind of let the commissioners know that what all we're looking at for capital requests in the park district. In the past, we pared that down and got it down to a balanced budget, but just to let all the commissioners know and be transparent, we want to let everybody know what the actual requests are and the needs are out there. So that's included here. And then also, the first time, we're going to kick off this budget meeting. Chuck Porter's online. We've got the agenda up there, this presentation. Then we'll review this year's budget, the whole COVID and everything. We've got to make some adjustments throughout the year, forecast and updates. And then we'll review the preliminary budget for 2021. So if you have any questions after, take care of those. But we have, I think we have all the directors in the room, and we also have Stacey and Diane from our HR department that worked with Chuck on the salary survey. So we'll kick it off. As I said, Chuck is out in Bismarck right now, so he's online. And for our new commissioners and our existing commissioners, we started the salary survey process back last spring, and our plan was to, prior to November last year. And we were just having trouble accumulating data, getting all the information we needed back by November. And it just, got delayed a month and another month, and we've already presented again in February, and then the whole COVID issue broke out, so it got delayed again. So I think finally, after a year and a couple months, Chuck and Stacey and I are ready to present the survey, and I'll just kind of give a brief bio of Chuck's background. Chuck is a native American and has a master's degree in administration from the University of North Dakota, hence they were talking about the hockey days up there. Spent a whole career in the field of human resource management, beginning in North Dakota League of Cities as a human resource program coordinator and serving as the assistant director of personnel for North Dakota Department of Transportation. He recently completed a 31-year career with super value as the director of human resources for Bismarck, Fargo, and Billings food distribution centers. Presently is working as a human resource coordinator for North Dakota Association of Counties based in Bismarck. And, one of his kind of part-time retirement duties is he's done. I learned of Chuck from Randy Bina and George Hellier up in Randy Bina is director in Bismarck. George Hellier is the finance director up in Grand Forks, and they previously worked with Chuck to do a salary survey for their park districts. Probably a couple of years ago. I think Grand Forks was 2 years ago, maybe Bismarck was 3 years ago. So that's where I learned of Chuck. And, one thing I just want to do is, kind of get, an independent voice. Stacey's done a great job with the salary survey in the past. One thing was to just bring in an outside consultant in, confirm we're doing everything right. I think working with Chuck and working with Stacey, and I think that did reinforce that we were doing a very good job. So, and Diane's been, on board over the years, so she's got a good handle of what's going on. So with that, Chuck, I built you up enough, and I'll turn it over to you to kind of do your presentation or present your report and findings, and then if we have any questions, we'll open that up for questions. So it's all you.
Okay, Dave. You were breaking up a little bit, so I'm going to talk kind of a little bit slow, but feel free to jump in if there's any issues with communication piece. First of all, yes, it's been a real privilege to work with Dave and his team there. Stacey and Diane have been terrific people, great resources, and I think we came up with a pretty good product with everybody's input. So with that being said, am I clear? Everything okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I wanted to talk about, really, I think it's very important to talk about methodology when we do stuff like this so that everybody kind of understands what the purpose was. And you'll see the 5 areas that we specifically addressed in this survey. Obviously, we want to compare salaries and wages of identified positions in relationship to other area parks and recreation districts and departments. As many of you know, even with that, you have quite a variety of departments and districts. You know, in South Dakota, be more of a department with the city. They're really not independent. And you have that with Minnesota too. So you have to have a bit of a perspective there that there are certain positions that are more city city central than they are specific park districts. But all in all, I think where there were maybe some deviations there, we had footnotes in the final report that clarify things. The other thing is number 2, salaries and wages of comparable positions with other public entities. Let's face it, we compete with other public entities, specifically cities. You have NDSU there. And we have to be sensitive that there's some overlap and there's some comparisons that we need to make as public entities. Number 3, a comparison of salaries and wages that relate to Valley Senior Services. Now, this one was a bit of a surprise when I took on this project because this was the first park district that I worked with that had this kind of service provided to clientele. We didn't, obviously, Bismarck, Grand Forks, other entities did not do this. So we essentially had to expand our search, so to speak, positions to get the information we needed to help Valley Senior Services kind of identify areas that needed to be addressed. And then the last one, we wanted to look at I wanted to provide some recommendations for consideration of compensation uniformity and make sure we're competitive and those things so that going forward, you have the ability and the resource to attract new talent. Let's face it, retention's a big deal, recruitment's a big deal, and we got to make sure we're competitively positioned to do that. So I've tried in my best endeavor here to provide a non-biased review of the compensation structure currently in place for the Fargo Park District. All the information that I obtained in this process was surveyed and an electronic survey format specifically designed to obtain compensation information. And for example, what went out to the organizations that participated in this was we surveyed 80 positions, and that in itself is a huge document. My concern was right at the very beginning, don't get the participation we need because let's face it, when you get one of these, you're going to vote some because not only did we ask for the position, we asked their position title. We asked them to look at a short job description that we wrote for every single position. And then we asked, park districts are notorious for what I call combo positions, where you have positions that are combined with a function. Oftentimes it's seasonal, whatever. But we asked for a number of employees, if is this position combined with another position, number of full-time, number of part-time, and and a lot of information is laid out, footnoted in the final report that you have. It's not so much here in the summary, but it's there for you if you want to do a deeper dive. So we also then felt we had to go to some additional resources other than just organizations, such as salary.com. Salary.com really helped us with things like the Valley Senior Services thing. And then also, we did a fairly deep dig on North Dakota Job Service information too. They do a pretty good job, but they have a tremendous amount of data. What we did is we focused on the Fargo had metropolitan statistical area. He kind of excluded the other areas of the state because that's your recruiting area. And so the information that you have in the report that relates to job service is based out of what they did with their concentration on Fargo-Moorhead. So with that, in the senior Valley Senior Services, it actually split into kind of two different surveys because while we were able to get a lot of relative data on the park district positions, we had to do a deeper dig on Valley Senior Service positions simply because the park district did those. So we were off and running to expand that search as much as we could. And I credit your team over there for helping me find some of those resources. I think we got the information we needed. Just as a footnote here, the salary.com information that was used extensively because it had a good database of related positions. And that really is a technology service that purchases compensation surveys actually worldwide. And to our purpose, we were able to get it down to a regional basis. You could do it by city, you could do it by county or state. And so to add a little diversity to what they were providing, we made a decision to use the Fargo area, Bismarck area, the Rapid City area, and St. Cloud area for diversity, just to get an idea of what's out there that we can compare. Again, that was just the salary.com information that we got for Valley Senior Services. So it was really a lot of prep work. Just 80 job descriptions alone sent out took a significant amount of time to accumulate, but it's really one of the great ingredients. Oftentimes you get salary surveys and there's no description of the job of what they're trying to compare. And we found that unless you send out a job description and people are going strictly by title, you're going to get stuff all over the board. So we asked the participating entities, look at the job position. But look at the job description. Maybe your title's different. Maybe it's a combo position. But in your best judgment, please try compare apples to apples, because that's the critical part of this survey.
Hey, Chuck.
Yes.
Chuck, 1 second. Dr. Joe, are you having some issues hearing? Joe?
I'm hearing every other word he's saying, but that's fine. If you guys can hear him, I'm fine.
Okay.
Jerry, connection. Jerry? Jerry, are you out there?
Yeah, I am. I just had to figure out how to get to unmute. I'm about the same with Joe. I'm understanding where he's saying and
Yeah.
what he's talking about, but the audio is choppy.
Okay. I'm going to go a little slower, and like I said, just if you get to a specific point that needs clarification, I will certainly slow down. So just to
Yeah, and
resist,
if it gets to the point where I'm losing what you're saying, I will definitely jump in.
okay, very good. Um, the job descriptions were a key component to this whole part. You have to have that in place to get the appropriate apples to apples comparison. And I think we got where we needed to go on that. So if you look at that list of public entities participating in the survey, there were quite a few. And if you have your report handy, if you can go down to number 19, I have a slight change there. Number 19 indicates that Nutrition Services Fargo Moorhead was a participant. They were not. We tried really hard to get them to participate, and for months we kept getting assurances that we would get the data. What they were had what I felt was critical was information pertaining to Valley Senior Services. And at the end of the day, uh, despite the insurances, we just couldn't get it. So you can scratch that one out. But what I would ask you to do is maybe pencil in the Fargo Moorhead Human Resource Association, or we call it FMHR Association. And they provide a lot of good private sector data because the Fargo Moorhead HR is a representation of both private and public sector. So we got some good info from them. But I'll expand on nutrition services a little bit in the report. Also, we also use the Golf Course Superintendents of America Association, and they do salary surveys too, and we use data from them for North Dakota and Minnesota for a lot of the golf positions that uh, you'll find comparisons. And when you go through um, the master report, the full report, you will see all of those positions or all of those organizations broken out as they were reported. What you have today simply is a summary of that because the full report is really detailed. So as we move on, you can see some of the other organizations that we used, salary.com, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and so on. They all contributed information. And so what we did is we did an average minimum, midpoint, and maximum. And that is kind of the standard way you report this information on a compensation survey. And we averaged all of that stuff of the organizations by the participating entities, and then we left out Fargo Park District so that you could compare Fargo Park District to everybody else, is a simple way to say that. Because this is the most organizations I've ever put together, at a lot of people involved with this. So I think you're going to get a fairly good read on these averages because it had a lot of people. And you'll see that last paragraph talks about North Dakota Job Service. Again, we focused on information that was specific to the Fargo Moorhead statistical metropolitan area, and they report their information kind of as entry, mean, and experienced And we bracketed that in the minimum, midpoint, and maximum, which is a pretty good fit. But if you want to see specifically what job service was reporting for any position, it's in the full report and it's broken out individually. So what we know is, for example, if you talk about cooks, that's pretty easy. What we found with North Dakota Job Service, what cooks do, this is what we're doing for Valley Senior Services, pretty much spot on. Maybe gets a little blurry is when job service, you keep in mind, they're getting reports from everybody, small employers, big employers. So you can have a guy who's running some kind of food brokerage business who's got an administrative assistant, and maybe it's just the two of them. Well, if you survey that administrative assistant position, that position's folded in with maybe somebody who's working for Bobcat. Universe that they use is pretty big, so it all kind of averages out. But again, if you want more details on job service, it's in the full report. So that's a bit of the methodology and the logic we used to put this thing together. How did this all shake out? When it was all said and done, one of the first things that really jumped out at me was Fargo Park District had a variance range. Some ranges that were wide as 50% spread. You had some that were 40%. We had some that are less than 50%. I'm not saying that that's wrong. Some organizations will go sometimes to a 50% spread. I mean, there could be good reasons for it. I'm kind of an old HR warhorse, I guess, and I like consistency. And so what I'm recommending here is you go through this report, we've adjusted all the ranges 40% spread, high and low. So everyone's going to treat it the same. I always got nervous when I worked for organizations where their ranges were too broad, even though it could be quote unquote okay. For example, at Super Value, I remember I was looking at a wide range we had for what we called buyers. I was thinking, gee, we got one of these senior buyers at the upper end of the range, and all the lower buyers or as junior buyers at the bottom, and most of them were female because we were putting a big push on increased representation of female into the buying positions, and I felt really nervous because I said, if somebody looks at this, they're going to say, well, you got a gender problem here because you got all your females at the lower end and the males at the upper end, and I thought, well, yeah, but they're all new. They're being recruited. They're going to move up, but really, when we had 40% ranges, you could at least compress that a bit and then maybe justify the logic a little bit better. And I'm not saying you have any issues here at the present time, but I think for consistency's sake, the range compression works extremely well. And it's really the common system. I've used the Hay compensation system for many years, and they advocate a 40% range. So it's nothing new. It's nothing radical. It's simply, I think, a good HR practice that will help the organization moving forward. So we get to number 2, administrative adjustments. And of course, this is where we threw everybody in that administrative area, and we started looking at plugging them into these compressed ranges and compared them to the information that we were getting back from all the organizations that participated in the survey. But kind of jumped out, and this was nothing new. Found this in Grand Forks too, and in Bismarck. The ability positions came back, group came back a bit low, and so you see a list of positions. Some adjustments.
Oh, we kind of lost you, Chuck.
Yep. Yep. I was just gonna say it's falling off, or I can't keep.
Lost you here, so can you hear me?
I can hear you, Dave.
Okay, maybe you want to start on that number 2 paragraph again, the
Yep.
administration adjustments. And I don't know if you need to just speak right into the mic or you turn your head a little bit and it cuts out.
All right, let's try that. How am I doing now?
That
Better.
sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to just switch positions. Maybe I'm talking the wrong direction here. Okay, let's pick up again with administrative adjustments. This is the area that we finally now start looking at the compensation data that was given to us by the participating organizations. And what we found as a pattern is some of the accounting positions were, as a group, were coming back a bit low. So that's not unusual because we found that similarity in Bismarck and Grand Forks. I think there was a thought at one time that there are so many of these folks out there that we could hire them at lower rates, but really to get good accounting people, we're finding that survey data is telling us that we got to up the ante a bit to get them. Case in point, some of you may know Kathy Feist, who is finance director over in Bismarck Park District. She came in there a couple years ago, and she actually moved over from the city of Bismarck. So it was an easy transition, and she came in with good public sector skills, familiar with the city of Bismarck and a lot of parallels with the Bismarck Park District. And my point here is that we want to make sure as a park district that we can recruit that kind of talent. So I would ask that you take a good look at these accounting positions that were listed out here in the report. And the other thing we found, a lot of concern is oftentimes, well, you're upping all of these pay ranges. Well, yes, we are. The data is showing that some of these should be adjusted upwards, but we've also are following a pretty strict pattern of what the survey is saying of even adjusting down these pay ranges. Example is the executive director, deputy director, and benefits and compensation manager. We're recommending that pay range can be lowered a bit. That the other organizations are paying lower than that as an average, and that you can be competitive if you adjust those positions downward. Now, my primary concern would be negatively impacting individuals. By and large, everybody falls into the range. I think there were 8 people that fell outside of the range, but I think these are things that can be taken or worked on individually and taken care of. So we're not looking at a radical overhaul here. We're just tweaking what we think is compensation changes that will keep the Fargo Park District competitive. So on the administration side, we had six ranges that increased, one basically no change, and then three that would decrease to a certain degree. So operations, same thing. Here are the positions that would increase, and this certainly impacts the majority of your employees. We've got the whole array here from not only the operations director, but also your park, and these folks. Um, I'd like to share an issue that we had when we talked about or did this with Bismarck. When we looked at the park work, okay, or your park maintenance department, we advocated that the compensation survey was saying we needed to increase that range. And some of the commissioners says, do we really need to do that? Because we have such a great benefit program. And and you folks have a great benefit program too. You really do. I mean, it's in public sector, especially the larger entities have great benefit programs. Never be an argument with it. But what we're dealing with, what we found in Bismarck was getting a lot of pressure from the Bakken and people that had class 1 licenses, people that maybe had chemical control certifications. Everybody was going after him, and I said, we can talk to these employees about, hey, you're getting great benefits, and they listen and they know that. But the younger generation is going for the money, and even with the Bakken downturn, we're still seeing that. We're seeing that within our own organization where we have the Association of Counties has an IT support company called NRG, and the average length of time that we can
We're
keep.
losing them again.
Okay, let me just pause for a second. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through very, very clear.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jerry. Can you hear him, Chuck?
Yep.
Hello?
Can you hear us, Jerry?
I got everybody.
There. Maybe it's back.
Can you hear us now?
I can hear you, David.
Okay, try it, Chuck.
Okay, Jerry, can you hear me?
Yep, it's back again.
Okay. You know, maybe there's a bird nest or something that fell on the wire or something from the storms last night. Who knows? But long story short is that be sensitive to the fact that compensation is an animal unto itself. And if you use a strict logic that we can offset this a lot by benefits, yes, you can do some of that, but it isn't the sole remedy. So what we have here on these ranges is we have 14 ranges that would increase. 2 basically wouldn't change. 5 would actually then go down as you see them listed. Okay, so then we go on to programming, enterprise adjustments. This one is the pattern we saw here is kind of an evolving pattern. And this also showed up in Bismarck, Grand Forks, big time. It's marketing positions, it's your web specialists, your content specialists, anybody that's working with electronic marketing, promotions, those kinds of things, uh, they become highly competitive. Private sector is snatching up those positions. They're elevating them because really in today's world, Facebook, all of those other social media venues commanding a lot of attention for marketing the organization. So they showed up, and you can see with that, basically then there were 20 positions in that area that we increased the range based on the market information, and then 5 decreased. Those are listed, and there were 6 no changes. Well, it's not radical, but to be consistent, we just broke it out. What the survey data was, there was no interpretation really. It was just really what the market data was telling. So then number 5, Valley Senior Services, that was the one that we had to use a little different data for, and that's where salary.com came into play. But we did survey a number of the other area, Bismarck Transportation, Dixon's, Souris River Valley, a lot of those folks. They service rural communities, but we were able to get some information. This is where I wish we would have had nutrition services information, because they do a lot of the same stuff we do on our side of the river. They're more Minnesota based, but I think we were able to get survey data that reinforced the fact that we need to make some adjustments, and you can see them listed there, and move forward. So that, and the last point was we did a gender equity review, and I went through every employee to see where they were broken, where they were falling, and I didn't see any patterns. I didn't see any red flags, but then again, I'm not surprised, because you have good staff there that watch this stuff. Between Stacy and Diane, I felt so comfortable with the data that they were sharing with me that I didn't expect this to be an issue, and it was not. So that's kind of my overview this morning, and I certainly would welcome any questions or clarification.
Does anybody have any questions on kind of that preface information methodology, or kind of the executive summary, I guess you would say?
Chuck, why in some positions did you choose to add in the city of Fargo and maybe West Fargo, but in other positions you did not?
The reason we did that was a couple. One is that I think they're a threat, and threat isn't the right word, but they're direct competitors for positions. And what we know is that historically, park districts are smaller and oftentimes don't have the scope that the cities have, and oftentimes similar positions are compensated at a rate in the park district. So what are we dealing with here? Are we losing people to the city of Fargo, to the city of West Fargo? If we are, what is the salary difference? And I think we know we probably don't lose people like that to Grand Forks or Bismarck, but I think in your own little world there, between Moorhead, because you're so large now, you're a metropolitan statistical area. You got Moorhead, you've got West Fargo, City of Fargo. We've had in there mostly for information, and let's take a look. That was the primary reason.
So when I look at this, so you chose to use a city's fee. I think a better determination was the city of Fargo or city of West Fargo did not provide the information for that job. They might not have that job, so that is why some had the city of Fargo, the city of West Fargo, where other jobs do not. Okay.
That's
Then my other question to go with that is, and you mentioned this just now, is you say that we can assume that the city and maybe NDSU positions are larger in scope. What do you mean by that?
okay, and that's a great question. For example, NDSU, I actually talked to them because they sent one back. It was an accounting position, and it was just way over the top. I thought, okay, this isn't a good position. Well, I talked to their HR person or their compensation person, got more data. I mean, we're talking about 1,000 employees in their system, plus the NDSU extension. And I thought, sometimes when you ask HR people in different organizations to provide this, they'll do a cursory look and say, well, yeah, we got that position, and then they put the information down. But it's what we would call an outlier. It's so obtuse, either too low or too high that you got to question it. So, talk to some of the entities. I would follow up and say, I don't think this is quite fitting. We're looking for an accounting manager for the park district, and they would basically agree. But sometimes that information does not gets put into the survey, but it should be challenged.
Because sometimes it was used and the position recommendation was actually to lower the dollars. And in other situations where it was brought up, we raised the dollars.
Yeah, it's when you deal with organizations, and we call it scope. You try to do the best you can to figure out how does that position relate to the Fargo Park District, and some do, and some don't. And so you'll get, if you want to call it an inconsistency, you'll get some of that.
Thank you.
What's that? Any other questions regarding the initial information? I don't know, Chuck, how do you kind of want to move forward, Chuck? Do you kind of go through, or do we just want to answer questions if any commissioners have regarding the actual surveyed averages, park district range, or surveyed averages, park district range, and then recommendations?
I would suggest that you, as your team, along with the commissioners, move forward on it. If you need clarification of anything, you can just contact me. I will do my best to provide that and see if all the recommendations fit or if some fit. Keep in mind that we're not looking at increasing compensation for a lot of people here. We're just adjusting the ranges so you can position yourself in the future. So I'm more than willing to continue to serve as a resource to you as you get to that point of implementation and budget.
And I think one thing we want to present to the commissioners is, kind of an executive summary of all the positions, the surveyed average, the park district range, and the recommendations. And we do have the complete survey that shows, comparisons for each position. So if anybody has any questions, we can always go available or set up a time to meet with HR. So.
Correct.
And that goes with, staff too.
So Dave, do we need a motion then to accept this? Or do we not need any formal action?
Yeah, I guess we did have, we made a motion to proceed with a, kind of an outside consultant to present, or to do the salary survey. That was a board approved motion. And I guess it would probably be fitting that, we wanted to just accept the findings of the survey, and then it would go back to our HR department and, finance and figure out how we're going to implement it. And, we'll have some recommendations coming up in the rest of the budget meetings.
So you'll look at this as a staff, determine where the shortfalls are, or possibly excesses, and just massage it into a place for the future so we get within the 30% spread that we talked about, and we're competitive in our market. We're covering our positions, and we're doing it in a way that we can retain staff.
Yeah, I think.
Staff.
Did you have something?
I just
Oh.
said yes, that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, I think the big thing was we want to make sure that, each of our positions is within, kind of, as I said, in general with park districts around the state, from South Dakota, Minnesota, and then also with direct competition from, the metro area is kind of the big thing. And as I said, I think, Chuck offers some outside eyes. I think Stacy's got some great experience that we've done in the past, and I think with Diane, bringing in a new set of eyes too, I think it came out to be a very good report. And as you said, it's guidance to try to set up the ranges for our staff so we can be competitive in the market. And as you mentioned last week, we want to be a leader in the market. So kind of with that kind of leads us into the budget process. We'll talk about that later, but basically it's kind of the report that we approved to go over with a consultant. And I guess the next step would be, if the commissioners feel comfortable, is just kind of accept the findings and all staff proceed with working it into our processes and how that comes to be.
Can I ask a naive question?
Yeah.
So when there are recommendations that salaries be lower for individuals or higher for others, how is it, ones that were indicated should be higher, that's understandable, but what about people in positions that it's recommended that their salaries be lower?
Yep. And that's a very good question. And just remember, these are just ranges. So it doesn't, for I don't know how many that maybe fall. How many of those?
For my 60 position, the range was recommended to be lower than the current. However, no one's actual salary is recommended to be lower.
So that when someone was hired in the future, it would be at a lower rate?
Potentially, yes. Depending on experience that they can do.
But this, if your range is here, and say somebody's sitting right about here, and the range got lowered, they're still sitting there. They just moved up in that 80 to 120. So they might have been at 85%, but now they're going to be at 88 of that range.
It would affect any kind of fee increases going forward.
No, this is just setting the ranges. How we implement it would be trying to figure out where people should be within that range. That's kind of part two.
Where the ranges land will ultimately affect the future. For the most part, the vast majority won't affect the present.
Yep.
But you'll have people who previously their maximum, let's just pick a number, was 100,000, and now the new maximum is 94. So they're going to hit that height quicker and get to the maximum sooner. and vice versa.
Theoretically, yeah.
This affects the future. It doesn't affect today for pretty much everybody we have currently working for us.
It's a good confirmation for a lot of staff that implements a healthy hiring culture that you find no discrepancy. Raises were almost on point. I mean, for the most part, we're out maybe a little bit here and there, but I think that it confirms that we have an excellent staff that has a policy in place that works well. We just need to figure out how to make sure we can move that forward because we do have direct competition with the cities of Fargo.
So, do you guys, this maybe is a Stacy question, know why our range is typically a broader range than what Chuck's recommending? Is that just kind of happened over time that we loosened each end, or?
No, that happened when our previous executive director and previous HR director decided to change and create, when by creating the families, a broader range for the higher executives because they figured it would take them a little longer to get through the range. They wanted to be in the range. Mid-level management was your 80 to 120. That is what it is. Three. No. And now we're always 80 to 120 before administration came in and then they have changed and this is what we're trying to get back to. The salary ranges will reflect
And that's what some of these, I think it's important to mention too, and make the distinction that, you know, there's several positions that the ranges are coming down. Well, the ranges went up during that time frame Stacy's talking about, but that might have been due to another job within that job that moved it forward. And so for ease of understanding, taking it from someone who's been in different chairs here, of, you know, seeing how we did it in the past, way easier for our and up here 80 to 120, instead of having three different sectors and which sector do I fall in and how does that relate to the other jobs in my family. So I think it's going to be way easier for our people to understand.
So one of the questions I have of you guys would be, there might be positions within this that the salary survey is going to tell us something, but you guys experienced over the course of the last couple of years. This is the position that we can't afford, or this is the position that we can't seem to keep someone because they go get this somewhere else in the neighborhood. What that? Even if it doesn't fit, certain skills might be to other business that you can go for, and it impacts you greatly. And maybe those things we have to adjust the range differently than the recommendation because it impacts us for a long time. And there's one position in particular that I think he took a striking blow when that person left because it was a big deal. And I believe we lost that person because of financial. And if we have to pay more for certain positions because of that, you know, that's something that I don't want to get stuck in this just because the survey says.
I think that would be a one-off position and based more on the coming in. Assuming we're hiring new, we're bringing someone who has a great deal of experience. We may have to say that we're going to bring somebody in at 180% of the range and then figure out what we're going to do going in the future. So that's where I think that tenure within the organization is something to be considered with implementation, and also performance of the individual when they're here. But then to also the individual's credit previous experience coming in. So again, you're hiring like a marketer with 5 years of experience, and then they're bringing in a low number of the range.
Yeah.
So,
Go ahead.
So this is Jerry. I just want to jump in. First of all, this is good. I think to have this work being done to set a baseline is a great starting point for us at the Park District. I don't think we can eat the elephant in one big bite. What I think we should do, and I don't think as a commission that it's for us to get in the weeds to decide. We should adjust this salary and that salary. I don't think that's for us to do. What I would recommend that we think about at the commission level is we determine, what we're going to do for compensation for the next year, whether it's a 3% adjustment or a 2% or whatever it is. And then maybe we could even slice it a little bit more and say, 1% is for equity and the other 2% is for merit, or however, or we let the staff decide. But the way we've done it in the past, I go back to my day job because that's what I can reference, is we've set aside, if the legislature gave us a 3% adjustment for the next fiscal year, we pull back 0.5% or even 1% and use that for equity. And then we use the other 2% for merit. And that way we tried to make those adjustments. And, I don't know that as a commissioner that I want to decide that this specific position should get a big adjustment and that one. I think we leave that to the directors to decide how they want to marshal their dollars in terms of trying to get to a good equity within the 80-120 environment. And then, we look at it as a multi-year process.
Jerry, I hope you don't think that's what I was implying.
No, I wasn't. I'm just, I just wanted to get my thought in.
Yep. I do want to comment. I do want to go back to the larger in scope, because when I read that, sometimes I think that reads as, well, our guys don't do as much as the other guys. And I don't, and I know that it's written in good faith with good intentions, but there's a few positions in here where it refers to the other duties for some other entity have a higher level of scope or larger in scope. And my reality is, if our people come to work and they work hard and they get all their work done within what the job is they're given, I don't like that larger in scope term.
I think it may have to do with the fact that, I'll take my position, for example. I'm an HR manager here, and I head the HR department. In another organization, I would be called a director. In another organization, I'd be called a vice president. But if you hand somebody a job description and say, okay, I need your HR manager, and here's 2 lines of what they do.
Yeah.
Well, here it's HR manager, but here it's director. So director may be considered larger in scope, but the job is, or we may call them an accountant, but NDSU may call that an accountant clerk based on just the title itself. Yeah. So that may be more what larger in scope means.
Just reads.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask a quick question. We can generalize this out to all positions to a certain extent, Chuck, but I'm just going to use Leaker's position because it's on the board here right now. So we just eliminated a deputy director position. And I'm seeing that the survey range is higher than what it is that we should be paying him. So question becomes, and Vicky's kind of alluding to this with talking about scopes and whatever, like, did your survey research basically say that a district of our size didn't need the deputy position? Is the deputy position responsibilities taken into account in the executive director position? How is that, just to kind of, because I don't want you to break down every single position, but obviously the executive director position is the easiest one to do, especially with this, deputy versus non-deputy position. So if you could just explain to us that one in particular, then I could kind of generalize that out maybe.
Sure. Organizations are dynamic, and so if a determination has been made, and that's a determination by you folks to not have a deputy director position, that's fine. What I thought was important is share the information from the other organizations that had a position like this or similar like this, so you could see going forward if at some point you want to bring on a deputy director, that's roughly where they are surveying out. That was really the motivation for that, because you know, in the course of working with your team, there's I got a lot of clarifications from Stacy and Diane saying, well, we don't have that position anymore, or here, this is a position we want to create. So we're asking you to survey this new position to see what everybody else is doing, or if we can get data to do that. So it's just pretty much what we got as feedback from everybody else. I just put it in the report, let you folks make the decision.
And Joe, I'll take a shot at that too. I think when the salary survey started, we had a position for a deputy director, and through the whole process over the last year, just between myself and the directors, we talked about the need for a deputy director. And I don't want to say it was my decision at all, but I thought my thoughts were that we could push some of the deputy director's duties to the directors and strengthen their level and bring their responsibility and accountability up. And I know that's putting more pressure on them, but instead of having a deputy director, the thought was to strengthen the manager level, who are the ones that are doing that day-to-day work in each department, and then have the directors get to a point where they're just helping oversight and kind of the strategic planning and thinking for the future. Now, we haven't got to where we need to be, but that's kind of the thoughts is let's strengthen director's level and strengthen the manager level, and hopefully we could get by without a deputy director.
Well, and that's fine. I was more so questioning from the survey standpoint, were those added responsibilities then taken into account for your position and their positions? Yes. If we eliminate the deputy director position, that's no problem. But then those responsibilities that would have been had by that have to be splashed out in other areas. And I just wanted to make sure that those responsibilities were included in their positions. And because, like I said, we eliminated a deputy director position and then get told shortly thereafter that your range is high for your position. And I just thought that was strange. If that would either say we certainly didn't need the deputy position, or maybe possibly that it's the added responsibilities aren't being included in your new range is all I was questioning.
Joe, we could certainly take that out of the report too, because you make a good point there. Sometimes this stuff gets swept up, changes occur during the year, and if it has no relevance, then it could certainly be removed too.
We're good.
Any other questions? Do we need maybe a motion to accept the report and direct staff to implement?
Motion we accept the report and move forward appropriately for our district.
Second.
Any other discussion?
So this will get sent out to us, right? So we have a chance to digest it all. There's a lot of information here.
The full report, you're saying?
Correct.
Yep.
All in favor? Or do we have to pull more? Done. Aye.
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 Well, we might be.
That's part two.
It's an aye.
All right. Well, it sounds like we made it through. Chuck, I appreciate all your work, and sorry it took so long. And Stacy and Diane, nice job working with Chuck and coming up with a complete final report.
I know you're very busy, but I just wanted to thank you. It's been a privilege to work with the Fargo Park District I feel I have some roots in Fargo. I really wanted to do my best to get you a meaningful report, and you have a tough job, especially with this COVID stuff. And now they got the Apple pipeline thing with potentially impacting revenue, and so I appreciate your time, and I hope you can use this to your benefit. And certainly, if there's anything else I can do, I'm just a phone call away. So thank you so much for the opportunity to work with you.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck.
All right, thank you. You're excused. We'll let you go back to your regular work. Yep, you go. You go. Thanks, ladies. Anybody want to take a quick break? You got to use the 50 or just keep moving?
Let's keep going.
All right, so we'll try to get through this pretty quick. I will start off by Tyson will kind of review the current 2020 budget and adjustments and impacts of the whole COVID event. So I'll turn it over to Tyson.
Good morning, everyone. So I'll get through this first two schedules pretty quickly. Commissioner Morgan, I'll listen to you, so if you have any questions, we can sit down and talk about it. I think all the other commissioners have kind of seen these schedules before. I'll just run through it. It's pretty similar to last month's. We did this in April. So this is just comparative financials from this year to last year through May. Just looking at the difference in revenues and expenses and kind of where we're at today. So COVID still impacting programming events, same as it was last month. Golf still doing really well this year, 322,000 ahead of last year. Sports Plus, obviously, it's impacted by COVID quite a bit. They're down 384,000 this year. Administration's still a big one that's quite a bit higher from last year, just due to the additional mail and property valuation increases. We haven't been seeing the impacts on COVID administration yet. At the end of this month, we should get our second quarter state aid check, so that we'll start seeing impacts there. So as we go through this year, this number should be coming down. This 969, or this 1.1 million should be coming down closer to probably the $600,000 range is what they're saying. Their state aid. So total revenues were up about 900,000. Expenses, again, we're seeing impacts of COVID, so just the savings that were there. So programming. We didn't offer all programs. There's savings to part-time staff, so we're down 50,000 there. Events, same thing, about 46,000 down between the two. Concessions, and that's the new concessions full-time position that's in there this year. That wasn't there last year. Golf, we have more expenses. We've been open up longer, so that makes sense. Sports Plus, again down. It's just part-time salary savings and some other operating type cost savings. In the year's capital. So administration, that's that meaning. The main reason for the decrease in expenses is the capital transfer that we did in 19 and not in 20. So in total right now we're down 824,000 in expenses from last year to this year. Again, I expect that to start coming up. So we'll keep watching that. Value chain services, revenues are up 150,000 this year. Expenses are also up about 60,000, just the increased meal costs, the additional meals. So value chain services is about 155,000 ahead this year from last year. But that's it for this schedule. If you guys have any questions.
That kind of just covers all the impacts of COVID and some adjustments we did, and we did a lot of our adjustments, and deferred maintenance out of our capitals, and we had a lot of projects scheduled. We had some that were already scheduled and bid. We had to do some. We just deferred till next year.
So next is looking at the revenue projections. This is one that we went through last month. We have our May 31st budget, what we've actually collected in revenues this year, just the surplus or deficit through May, and then just a revenue decrease projection based on these assumptions, right? So again, pretty much the same as last month, pretty similar. Golf is still doing well. Everybody else is being impacted. Administration, we have that $600,000 decrease in state aid that we're projecting. Sports Plus, right now we're projecting about $812,000. At this point, we don't, I mean, playgrounds, birthday parties, they're going to have a big impact on how we kind of, the revenue they're bringing, they're revenue generators. So that's going to have a big impact on that number. One thing we need to keep in mind, we provided $200,000 subsidy. I believe in the past it's been for the playground. If we're down $800,000 this year, this is with that $200,000 subsidy. Are we going to increase that, or are we going to carry it on our books as they owe us money? I mean, that's kind of the two options. So we need to keep that in mind. The decision doesn't need to be made today, but we need to think about it. Next year, just going through the preliminary budget, we're looking about being down $200,000. Just again, it's a guess. We don't know what playgrounds, we don't know what birthday parties we're going to be able to do next year. So Kelly and Bonnie, they've been looking kind of ways to generate revenue. So one thing that Kelly sent out yesterday was a sales tax proposal. I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, if you guys want to discuss it more, but one thing they're recommending is that we keep the total amount paid out of pocket the same to the member. We'll just decrease the amount that we're paying sales tax right now and increase our membership fees. In total, we keep the amount paid out of pocket the same for our memberships. But if you guys have any questions on that, reach out to myself or Kelly, and we can discuss it before the board meeting if you'd like. That's all I have on revenue projections. So one thing, well, with tax revenues, they fluctuate. We receive our tax revenues based on when people pay their property taxes. So they could pay earlier in the year, they could pay later, they might not pay at all. So I did put a $300,000 adjustment in there. We're ahead in tax revenues this year. I don't know if that's actually going to be true at the end of the year or if it's just a timing difference. So I put that in there just to kind of try to normalize our revenues. But I'll keep running the schedule every month and just kind of tracking and seeing where we're at on revenue collection versus where we're busted.
So overall, we talked about trying to find, was it 2 points?
Okay, I got one question for Tyson first, if you don't mind. Remind me, Tyson, how does this projection look to, say, a month ago? Is it changed one way or another, or is it trending a direction, or just what's your reaction to that?
So last month it was at 2.4 million, but I made a mistake last month where in 2019 we received state aid in April, so it was deposited in April. This year we received it in May, so it was deposited in May. I didn't notice the timing difference between that. So that was about $730,000. So if I would have factored that in last month, this would be about right on track with where we were.
So it's consistent so far. It hasn't changed. It's not going one way or another.
No. If I would have factored in the timing difference for state aid, it wouldn't have. If you go back and look at the schedule, it did. But if I would have accounted for it correctly, it wouldn't have. So yeah, it's trending that way.
Okay, thanks.
So that's kind of what I was getting into. I mean, right now, so we were projecting it 2.2, 2.4 loss in revenues, and that is what that is. And now we're about 1.6, 1.7.
Yep.
And just for the commissioners and Don is, we found kind of the cutbacks mostly in capital, some staffing, just to cover that 1.6 million in shortfalls. And some of those, called deferred maintenance, we'll touch on it later, but some of those just got back here, some of those big projects. So while we really didn't take a hit in, as other entities did with laying people off or furloughing them, we did take a hit in kind of our capital accounts that, this is maintenance that's not going to go away. We need to plan for that for the future. So, we'll show, and a lot of those are listed in our capital schedule. I don't know, Dave, anything else to add or?
Yeah, and then just some of the, transfers that we do normally on a yearly basis. It's in the same vein, but we utilize some of those transfers that we would normally put into, things like our playground updates and our asphalt accounts, that we just kind of pull from. We call it our Fund 40 Capital Reserve. So we didn't fund some of those reserve accounts this year just to, shore up those shortfalls. So it's all work that is still there, and our people still feel a need to get it done, and, you know, so there's a bulk of it that's included in that as well, those transfers.
Are we currently operating with less staff than last summer at this same point?
Depends on where you're at. I mean, in certain areas, we're definitely, yep. In the park side of it, we're reduced, but not greatly. I would say we're probably 8 to 10% maybe, you know, because a lot of the work that those people do is still going with all of the mowing and the upkeep of the golf courses and, you know, everything.
The grass still grows even if the grass doesn't know we have less people?
Yeah, and the thing is, we've actually seen an uptick in the work that those people do, not necessarily just in the grass, but in just garbage. I mean, there's way more people utilizing our parks now because I think they spent so long being cooped up, and the weather's been awesome. We've had great weather, so we're seeing really high activity. And the way we gauge that is by how often we're collecting trash in certain areas, and we're really struggling just to keep up there. And that was an area we initially thought we'd pull back on a little bit and save some staffing. We just didn't. We started down that road and thought, there's no way, we got to get these people in here to help us.
Courts Plus.
Courts Plus, we have less than half the part-time staff because, again, the programs aren't at the same level. We don't have the birthday parties. Even the front desk, we're slowly starting to increase our hours. But again, full-time staff is being asked to do a lot of the cleaning and a lot of that work. Concessions now, that's a different story. We have 15 concession sites, and so depending on the schedule, we still have to have bodies there. And so we're maybe down a little bit because we don't have the tournaments, we don't have as many activities that way, but it's still pretty stable. And golf, we've got a few more, but again, it's 1 or 2% more because of the additional cleaning that was expected to be done.
Sure. Thank you.
Any more questions on where we are in 2020? So once again, it's, you know, very appreciative to all the directors and their staff to kind of deal with what we've been dealing with and finding cutbacks where we can. And as you still try getting the grass mowed and the weed sprayed and the parks open. So it's been a tough year, but everybody's doing a good job. I hope it's back to normal sooner than later. What's that? Well, you gotta be an optimist, right?
Yeah,
Wouldn't want to be a
plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yep.
So next we'll talk about the 2021 budget, and this is where we need to kind of focus the majority of our time. Our next budget meeting is July 29th, and at that point we'll have to have the preliminary budget pretty much ready, because then it'll go to the board on the first week in August, and then we'll get into the county from there. So this is the schedule that we've been talking about during the last couple of budget meetings, but we've made some additions to this one. I'm just going to turn it over to Lee here and let him kind of walk through the changes we made.
I thought that was the plan, then he started off, and I thought he was going to take the whole sheet here.
Yeah.
So this is just kind of a one-page synopsis of new revenues and new expenses for next year. This is by no means our recommendation. It's things to think about, and as Tyson said, we have to have that mill set by that August meeting. So between presenting it today, and if commissioners have questions, feel free to call myself, call Tyson, call any of the directors. You know, we're more than happy to answer questions. We'll have another budget meeting at the end of July, you know, try to solidify things out for that August meeting. So these are some of the thoughts we had, by no means right or wrong. They're just discussion points. So just kind of I'll start it off. Our general mill levy, if we were to rate this, or currently, there's 2.2% of new growth, that's new construction in the Fargo area, and then 2.7% growth of existing taxes. So overall, there's a 4.9% increase, which means new money coming in the park district to a tune of $665,000. And this is a thought out there, and I know it's a tough year to think about this. The optics of everything with, you know, the COVID and what everything's going on with other entities. But this is just an option. If we added another mill, would bring in another $592,000. and that's a 4.5% increase. Local entities can go up to a 12% increase per century code. So we're still under that. We'll come out to 9.4%. But that brings in 592,000 golf fee increases, which we approved earlier, 25,000. Here's kind of the big one that Tyson mentioned with state aid. This is all the revenue that comes into the state, oil taxes, agriculture, sales tax, state sales tax, and then that gets dispersed back out to local entities. So we're looking, is that 30%? About a 30% cut.
North Dakota League of Cities is recommending 30% for next year at this point in time. It's like everything else, it's a guess, but that's their best guess at this point, so that's what they're recommending.
So realistically, we get about $2.5 million in state aid each year, and next year they're projecting about $840,000 reduction. This year, 2020, it's about 600,000. And that's a guess. We don't know, but that's projected. So if you look at that overall, if you took a mill increase, we have probably $443,000 of new money for next year. So that's kind of the revenue. And if you didn't take the 1 mill increase, we'd be minus, $150,000. Compensation pool increases, and as I said, these are just need to be approved by the commissioners. Inflationary, this is based on the CPI index at a certain point in time. 1.2%, which is about 54,000. Market for market adjustments, and this is just what we've done in the past, right? Or Tyson, 1% for 45,000. So that's about a 2.2% increase. And what this is 2.2% of our total full-time wages, and then that's about $100,000. And at the end of the year, we're looking at modifying our merit matrix a little bit, but it's about $100,000 of increase. It by no means, everybody doesn't just get 2.2. Some get more, some get less based on performance. So there's about 100,000 there. As mentioned in last year's budget, with the pending salary survey coming up, and we just thought we would set aside $140,000 for if needed adjustments based on the salary survey. That's to get people in ranges, to get people where based on years of service and performance, where they are through that range. If we say we have an 80 to 120 range, and somebody's been a high performer and has 20 to 30 years of experience, realistically they should be above midpoint. Maybe in that 105 to 110%. Well, we have staff that might be at 90 or 95%. So we just feel if you're going to retain staff, they need to be at the right point in that range, not held back. So that was kind of the initial point of salary survey. Let's set these ranges where they're competitive in the market, and then the next part of it is the budget part of it, is how do we get people where they need to be in those ranges. So last year we set aside $140,000. Not sure where the salary survey would come in, but it was just there. We did have HR, Stacy and Diane, look at if we set up, trying to figure out where people fall in their ranges based on years of service, tenure, and performance. And they set a max at 110%, so nobody would be at 110%. And this is just a formula to try to figure out this pool of money. Then it gets divided up into the departments, and the directors make their adjustments. But what they did in their formula, they came up with an additional $115,000 on top of the 140. So total salary adjustments to get people where they need to be in their range is $255,000 if approval. That's kind of staff's recommendation. This would be phase 2 basically of those adjustments. Seasonal staff changes, I think we had initially $10,000 in here, and Tyson, correct me if I'm wrong, it's more like 100.
Yeah, we're going through the budget process. I entered everything in last week, and what they're at, looking at the seasonal staff, what they're proposing or requesting.
110,000. So you can put basically a 1 on that. And what that is the additional part-time staff that are needed to get our jobs done, and then the additional wages to retain our part-time staff. I mean, right now, because a target or somebody's setting their minimum or their 15, and so we want to be competitive, and somebody doesn't say, well, and I'm going to make $9.50 or whatever in the park district. So it's a part of additional numbers and then a part of added wages to try to defend that. Typically, you can get them for 4 to 5 years while they're in college. And if you get them for 1 or 2 years, you got them. They flee the park district, it will make another couple bucks. We just lost all that training.
And I'll give you an example of that is at the pools, we were fortunate that more, because we would have struggled to get guards completed, complete staffing of all the pools. We had, I guess, double digits, I think 10, 12, from Moorhead that applied for jobs over here. So that was fortunate for us. Those dollar amounts that we're offering for those guards, you look at Foss, Windor, that they got, we can compare to some of those numbers right now.
So the seasonal staff changes, there's some market in there and there's some equity built in there, right? Is that basically what you're saying?
There's some addition of staff and then some market.
Okay. I don't know what the other commissioners' thoughts are on this, but if the salary survey increase of 115 would, based on looking at the math here, if a market adjustment of 1% is 45, we're looking at a 2% plus increase for salary surveys. So really, we're looking at 4.2% overall for compensation increase. And I guess my thought would be is that I would prefer we settle on a compensation pool increase overall and let the directors decide how they want to break it out. Instead of having a separate line item in there, because I don't think we can do this in one bite. We don't have the whole money in there. But I think it would be more, we need to settle on what our overall salary increase is, and maybe we could say a certain percentage should be for equity, but beyond that, I don't know that I'm comfortable breaking out a salary survey increase as a separate line item.
Do we normally break it up this way?
The salary should be, that would have been new last year.
And this is really 115 plus 140, right? So it's really $255,000 for the salary service increase here.
And we just broke it out so you can kind of see.
And this is to figure out a budget. This is exactly where it's to figure out.
All these numbers can go up and down. Exactly. I mean, this is kind of our new revenues and our new expenses. If everything else was missing. Any follow-up questions, Jerry?
No, I just, again, I think my opinion would be that we come up with a total compensation pool increase and let you, as a staff, figure it out.
Maybe try to bring up the details so we kind of have an idea. Because the question would come up if you threw a lump in there, we want to know exactly what you're thinking. So I appreciate that.
And frankly, if somebody scrutinizes our budget, I could see where someone would go, you're not really giving a 2.2% increase, you're giving a 4.2% increase, you're just hiding it.
Right.
Yeah, and kind of the reason we wanted to break it out was, we talked about doing exactly what you said, but, since we have the salary survey, we wanted to let the commissioners know what it's going to take to get people where they need to be within their new ranges based on performance and tenure. So that's going to come out to $255,000 to get people where they need to be, but we didn't also want to lose the end of year increases, that kind of inflationary index moving forward. So we just wanted to break it out so it's easier to understand. And we can definitely put it all together, Jerry.
No, I didn't bring this up sooner rather than later, just because I think it's hugely important. The addition of a mill, I will tell you right now that I'm not going to support. I understand that we have some serious shortcomings in money, in revenue. I understand next year's going to be a struggle if we have to think even harder on what we're not going to get done. But to raise taxes at such a time, I think is not a good choice for us. If you look at it, we have $665,000 plus coming in 2021. So without increasing the mill, our budget will already go up $665,000. I understand that trying to find $592,000 more not to add in is going to be a struggle, but I don't think we're in a position in this day and age to have our residents and taxpayers paying more taxes when they're struggling similar to where we're struggling. Going down to specifically with the survey, with the salaries, many entities are cutting jobs, many entities are getting rid of positions, furloughing, putting people, laying people off, and a large percentage are freezing wages. So I don't have a problem with us discussing this is what we want to do in 2021. And should the world recover, that would be great. And if you want to budget and plan accordingly, that's fine. I think we want to plan for the future if things do work out and we figure out how we're going to build up our revenue and those kinds of things. But I think to just automatically assume it's going to work out for us to give people salary increases and raises across the board and adjust things significantly, I think we're in a horrible time to be adding $255,000 in salary survey increases plus the compensation increase. So I feel bad for you that you have to try to figure out how to make this all work in such times, but I think realistically to say we're going to have all these increases it's not the time.
No, those are all good points, and we definitely talked about all those points as director team, optics, and as you said, people being laid off and furloughed, and so we wanted to throw it out on the table so everybody can discuss it, and just kind of one thing, and like I said, it was kind of a perfect storm with the COVID thing and over the past couple of years, and as you said, the mill is increasing, we are taking on new money, and realizing that things get more expensive, the park district grows, so those get eaten up pretty quick. And just kind of for some past history, maybe for Don, and looking at our past mill levy, and if it's gone up or down, and granted, with the new growth, while the mill might have gone down, we do take in more revenue. So just be open and honest about that. But basically, year 2010, we were at 31.45 mills. That trended down slightly over the next 5 years. In 2015, we went down from 30.72 down to 29.52, so that was a 0.8 reduction in mills. In 17 to 18, or 15 to 16, 17 to 18 went down 0.91 mills, and 17 to 18 went down 0.81. So those 3 years, while like I said, our revenues did increase a little bit, we did lose the capacity to capture that additional money. So, that's 2.7 mills were reduced in those 3 years. And if you look at that, at $500,000 and $600,000, that's $1.8 million that we lost the ability to capture, which puts it, it's tough on deferred maintenance capitals, addition of staff. And as I said, we've all talked about this. It is a tough time. It's tough optics, but we just kind of want to be open and honest, let the commissioners know, we do have some needs, and that's why we included that whole capital list, whereas in the past, our staff would pare that down. We present a balanced budget, and then it kind of looks like, oh, well, there's not that many needs. But we just want to show you open and transparent that we have $8 million worth of deferred capital and new capital needs, and $3 million to fund it. Now, $500,000 is not going to fund that $5 million shortfall, but 1.8 million loss over those 3 years does. It does put it hurt. It hurts a little bit. So we did get in 2018 and 19, we held the line, so it stayed at 27.8. And then last year, we did increase the mill, so we went up to 28.8. So that's where we currently stand now. So if we were to hold the line, we'd be at 28.8. with that 4.9% increase. While the mill stayed the same, we do capture, as Vicki mentioned, additional revenues. But I think as we've shown, and as I said, it's a tough debate. Is it the right time to do this stuff with everything going on, as Vicki mentioned? Or do we kind of struggle through another year? And we're still going to struggle. I mean, that $840,000 loss is tough. So we just want to throw all this out there as discussion points, and I appreciate Vicki, giving us her thoughts in there. So I just want to kind of share that with you, that we did go down, 2.5 mils over 3 years there, which our revenues went up, but we did lose 2.5 million, or 2.5 mils, which is, almost $2 million so, of capacity we could have captured.
Can you tell me how that addition of the 1 mil works? So how do you,
last year?
Well, let's say it's right here. So if you were going to do that for your upcoming budget,
yep.
How do you go about it? Just what's the process?
So that's just basically board approval. The state allows government entities to increase, as long as you got room in your mill cap, and I think the mill cap's like at 42 mils, so we're currently at 28.8. You can capture 12% increase of the previous year. So Tyson's broken this out that the new growth and the increase in value is 4.9%. So you could take an additional 6.1% or 7.1% to go to that 12% cap. We just threw out there 1 mil, which is 4.5%, so that's going to be 9.4% of that 12% you could capture, just as trying to recapture some of that lost state aid money. And just in some of the mills that we didn't take from 16 to 15 to 18. So the board would just have, at that August meeting, approve increasing our mill from 28.8 to 29.8 on a vote of the 5 commissioners.
Okay, so Vicki is opposed to that,
yeah.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And you're saying that because you think that the taxpayers wouldn't be open to that?
I'm saying it's not a good time to increase taxes from people who are struggling.
But the taxes are coming from the state, right?
No. This would be property tax.
The property taxes.
The state aid is aid from the state back to us. So this is local property trying to make up for some of that loss.
And so what is the cost per 100,000 increase? What is that?
Like a home value?
Yeah.
It's around like $4.50.
So if your house is worth $100,000, your taxes are $4.50.
Okay, so it kind of like, I don't want to talk too much since I'm the new person here, but it seems to me that since the park district has something to offer for people at a time of difficulty, and you were talking about the greater use of the parks, and when the facilities reopen, it seems that those are going to be extremely popular places to be. So if there is a good time, this could be a good time because of the need and the desire of the public for these services.
Any other
I
comments?
have 2 questions. I don't need an answer today. I just want to have the thought process going. The long-term impact of pushing off our capital expenditures and not funding our Fund 40. So we know the benefits of having our Fund 40 pre-funded for projects has been that we've saved a lot of money in interest and we didn't have to borrow through
Finance.
So that's one thing that weighs in my mind. I don't like deferred maintenance to go too long because pretty soon we've got emergency capital expenditures that we don't have any money for because we, took that away. And I can't pick a side on how I feel about a mill increase right now at all because I don't have all my answers yet. What is everybody else doing? School district and the city of Fargo?
Yeah, good point. And I did talk to the school district and the city, and both are going to hold their mills flat. So if they're at 30 mils, they're going to stay at 30 mils, and then they would capture that 4.9% increase. The city of Fargo did go up 2.4 mils last year. And I didn't get if the school went up last year or not. But that's one thing I wanted to say is, we're not going above where we were. I guess we're trying to get back to where we were. If we would have held our mills or gradually went down, we would still be able to capture that, 2.5 mils, or even if we went down a little bit, it might be 2.2 mils. And that's $1.4 million that year then. And we got part of that back last year. So, while the city or the school are not going up this year, they didn't necessarily go down 2.5 mils in those 3 years. So that's the point we're making, and that's for discussion. Any other questions? We kind of stopped off at the seasonal changes, about 110, and then I can move on unless we have any other questions. Hearing none. So then, one thing we touched on in the salary survey was the deputy director, and kind of the thoughts on the director's team was, and I kind of go back and forth some of the directors that were giving up positions and not replacing them, and it's putting more pressure, and maybe very well, on the directors group. And as I mentioned earlier, I would like to strengthen that directors group, their responsibilities, by taking some of those deputy director roles and responsibilities and kind of pushing them out to all the directors, so they all have a part of that. And not necessarily, so we lose a position at the director's level, but I'd like to strengthen that manager's level. And we do have some manager level positions that we did push off to 2022, just because we were looking at putting them in at 2021, but as Vicki said, with people getting laid off and adding new positions, it's just not probably the right time. So the two we did put in here for discussion was a controller, which is a business office manager. Right now we have an account manager, Chris Creech, and then an IT manager. And so those are the two up for discussion. So as you can see, that strengthens that manager level and hopefully takes some pressure off the directors. The IT manager would take some pressure off our current project manager, Tyler Kutchner, who's, he's a certified landscape architect, but he's done, I don't know, what percent of his role is IT right now, would you say?
Say probably 30 to 40%.
30 to 40% of his time just spent on IT. So what that would do is take some of the pressure off Tyler, which would allow him to take some pressure off Dave by doing more park planning type stuff. And then we also had some savings in our IT contract over the year. You can see that in the $100,000 down there. So those two positions with the savings we had were about, $135 for deputy and $100,000 with IT contract. That's about $235 in savings. So those are kind of the two positions. The controller one, could be argued, is this the right time to add additional controller? Or do we wait a year? I don't know when Chris will be retiring. I don't know. It's kind of a discussion between the two. So, and then as I said, we got the salary savings from the deputy director. We budgeted for that, not knowing how the executive director position would pan out. And then an increase in benefits of $12,000. So if you look at those positions, basically the staff price would go up expense would go up $52,000. And then if you go down to additional operating costs and savings, we've got foundation operating support. We talked about this. In the past, we started out with $100,000 of support for the foundation. This kind of administrative type support. That fund is decreasing, and we just feel we need another $50,000 to keep that foundation going, kind of through the whole sports complex fundraising process. I don't know. Tyson, anything to add on that?
Now that I'm looking at it, that should be a negative $50,000.
So that should have parentheses around that?
Yeah, so we budget $100,000. We provided $100,000 in the past, probably about $50,000 next year.
Because we just need 50 to get through 2021, right?
Yeah.
So then the new IT contract that we put out for RFPs, that's a savings of $100,000. Health insurance is going to be going up this year. At the park district, that's up to $290,000. And we talked about that in the salary survey. We do have good benefits. We do require the employees to pay a percentage of, those health benefits. And then the courts plus deficit that Tyson had talked about. And that's the existing $200,000, or is that additional $200,000?
That's additional.
That's an additional 200. So total of.
I need a new calculator, I got, and depending on how we determine the
That's
loss.
$100,000 swing on that one.
At Courts Plus, it could be even more, depending on how much they lose and how we decide to book it, correct?
Right, but we can reopen it to what level? Well, we're gonna come back, that's the other part.
And, as I mentioned, a big revenue generating loss was the playground and the party room, so and those are
They
bigger.
may not open for a year.
A lot of people are purchasing their own stuff to do at home, so.
It's changing, it's really gonna be a shift, a paradigm shift in how a lot of people operate moving forward.
But to Dawn's point, we're seeing more activity on trails and parks.
Where people can be safe.
Correct.
I have one question in the salary increases. Does that also include the raises plus an additional FICA and all of that? Is that a full nut that you guys have added in, or is it just?
Well, I think you levy for what you need with FICA, don't you? Or the taxes that pass through and then our share of FICA?
So it's not in this budget, but it is in our actual budget. So we have supporting schedules that we'll put in, and it calculates all that, so.
This is specifically wages.
Yeah.
Because the salary story increases obviously increase our taxes as well.
Yeah.
And as part of, that increases pension and everything like that. So there it should, and Tyson's gonna have to rework this sheet, but, so it shows total expenses of 517,000. And if you add the 1 in front of the 10, that if you took the additional mill, net available for expansion would be, we're still 174,000, that we'd have to make up for. And if we took the 600,000 off there, it'd be, basically 233,000 would be, at which we would make cuts in either capitals, some of these staffing positions, or that we would do as staff. So we're kind of presenting this to the commissioners to maybe give us, and it doesn't have to happen today, but just over the next weeks, feel free to call or talk or let us know as soon as possible, because we have to base our budget on what our revenues are going to be, and then if we have to make the needed reductions wherever in which departments.
Do you think you could update that sheet and send it out to us?
Yeah, all that.
Just to kind of have a.
Well, your total stays the same. You're just adding 100 above and
Yeah.
taking it off the wall,
Well, the 50,
The
how does that would
517
adjust
is
the
the
50?
right?
Well, the 50 would be the
Yeah,
good.
because you're adding 100,000 of the seasonal salary changes.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
And then the 50,000 is really negative 50, which is 100,000 difference.
Right.
So the 517 is right on money. It's
Oh, well, sure not.
It's like you predicted it up front, Tyson.
So it basically is $74,000 loss.
So you calculate it up.
So the bottom numbers are right.
I want my numbers to come from that guy instead of me recalculating.
Bottom two
But-
totals are the same.
Dave, when do you need, or Tyson, when do you need the numbers so that for August you have a complete package?
By next week, I would say, if we could think about it and discuss and come to consensus of how I should prepare the budget.
Yeah, so we do have time from when we set our mill levy request. That August 5th is kind of when we need to know, are we staying at 2.8? Are we going up to, or 28.8? Are we going up, add the half mill, add the mill, whatever? That's when we set our mill request, right? And then we got from August through September, when in September to balance the budget, right?
So
Actually, vote.
it can't increase after the August.
Right.
Unless it's
So you
revenue.
could say, we want the auction to go 1 mil, and then in September, we decide if we do it or not.
The final budget.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't go up, but you
Right.
can go down.
But you can go down.
Establish an arms.
And that's kind of just, we're just looking for, we need, you kind of work backwards, you need to know what revenues are coming in so we can work backwards on the expenses.
So is it accurate to say the board does not have to make this decision today? They could say, for planning purposes, keep working on the way you're working. And we'll decide the levy that we're going to set. In August, that's probably
So a lot of information for a new commissioner.
It's interesting.
That's a new way to think. It's interesting. Positive attitude.
She didn't run screaming. I think we're doing okay.
Yeah.
I think that's because she's not even shaking.
See if she shows up at the next.
Oh, that's right. It won't be at 8 a.m. She'll be there.
Right.
So it is, oh, wait a minute. So then, I guess, I don't know, we did put our capital schedules on the last, it was probably 8 or 9 pages. And what that does is, typically as part of the budget process, is we go out to all of our departments and we kind of find out what are our maintenance needs, what are our new requests, and that goes from equipment to playgrounds to trails, asphalt projects. And as part of this whole thing is the long-range capital plan that we're going to try to reestablish here for the big projects, Island Park pool, sports arena roof, those big ticket items where you try to plan well in advance of when these are coming due. But these are more, I'm not saying they're small, but they're smaller projects. Just to kind of let you know those needs that are out there. I mean, we've got a Lindenwood, we talked about last year at Lindenwood, to put that road up in that 24, 25 foot area because it's falling apart, because it gets flooded, the river still gets on the asphalt, dries it out, potholes. So that's a 1.2 ballpark project that we just met yesterday on that. So that's a big project. We've got the Coliseum parking lot, which was brought up yesterday, we're going to try to limp it through another year or two, but it's basically a remove and replace because it's so alligator or fractured that you just can't put a lift on it. So that's a big project. That's a $1 million+ project. We've got a $400,000. I mean, there's several asphalt projects that are
just trails, and I mean, the deferred maintenance, the point Stacy made is a good one. It's catching us. Can we limp things along and keep going? Certainly. We can keep patching and doing the best we can, but at some point, we're going to get bit by unexpected expenses, and they're going to be large, and it's going to be like, well, if we don't have it kind of planned out, we're going to get caught.
And we're going to be short, and somewhere down the line, it's going to be a multi-million-dollar year, and we don't have the money in the bank.
right. Well, and then it comes to taking a loan or financing with a bond, or then you start paying finance charges, which we've done a good job over my 21 years. These guys, 30 years of trying to pre-fund things. And another big one is the asphalt down at the Fargo Little League complex. I mean, kids are taking chunks of asphalt, throwing them into the grass, and I just think our mowers are going to hit them. But we're trying to keep limp that along too. A big one that's we talked about Lindenwood master plan and then an Island Park master plan. And I think if we can get that road done down at Lindenwood, we can just have that be a nice park for now. Something's not gonna fail and then we close the park. It's gonna be operational. The Island Park pool, I think that southeast corner gutter system dropped again, centimeters, inches, where that gutter system is having a tough time functioning, the skimmer system. So what we're just thinking as staff is maybe we need to move Island Park master plan, which is mostly the pool, to the forefront, and then Lindenwood later, but keep Lindenwood looking good, mow it, whatever. So that's some of our internal thoughts. And that's kind of where, we did get back that 2.5 mils over those 3 years, and most of that does come out of our capital requests and deferred maintenance, as Dave mentioned.
So on that Island Park pool, just for your information, again, that it was approved in last year's budget for $25,000 to look at it, hire a consultant for that. So as we presented before, that those fees initially came in quite a bit higher, about double of that $25,000. We've now done will be doing another RFP very shortly to those groups, eliminating the assessment needs of the part of the RFP. We're going to handle that in-house.
Well, the user group, the assessment will still happen.
The user groups.
But reaching out to all the user groups, collecting that data, we'll do in-house versus having somebody come from Colorado where.
$30,000 alone.
$36 to follow the Y.
Right.
Put surveys.
And have a few public meetings.
Right. So then they can do the needs assessment of that facility, design features, can we reuse the bathhouse, and at least give us somewhat ballpark figures of what we can anticipate. Because we need to be more reactive.
Your initial thought that the pool will stay where it is?
Yes.
Well, and that's one thing we'll look at. I mean, if we can reuse that bathhouse, that's going to be a huge cost saving. I mean, it's cast in place concrete, precast, double T roof
Starting
systems.
one of the apocalypse stuff.
So, it's a good tornado shelter.
We'd also look at a splash park instead of a wading pool in there. And turn that a little bit more around for a little bit longer
Let's
time.
do that right now. Turn off the phone thing. I gotta run.
All right. Well, any other questions?
Yeah, I got to drop off too, but keep working with the direction that you've got there, and I guess I'm in favor of if we need to pull it back down the road between now and August, we do, but let's leave it in the 1 mil in there for now.
And this is, it's just an invitation to all of our commissioners. I mean, if you have questions and you want to come in and sit down with Tyson or myself or any one of the directors, just feel free over the next couple of weeks here. We'll try to answer all your questions. It's all right. Well, sorry for some of the technical glitches in the opening part, but I think we managed through it. And hopefully everybody has a good rest of your day.
All right.
Thanks, Sam.
Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you. All right. Well, that'll be another half one. How much did you get at the lake, ran at the lake? Lost or no damage? Or you went out there and out?